Hey guys, I'm Erin and welcome back to my channel. So today, or the day I'm posting this at least, may not be the day you're watching it, is my birthday. So in honor of my birthday, I decided to do the birthday book tag. So I've seen this on several channels below. So starting with the first question, birthday cake, a book with a plot that seems cliche but you adore it anyway. So for that, I'm going to answer with a series, and that is the Kingmaker, Kingbreaker duology by Karen Miller. So I mentioned this in my top favorite completed series. I think this was number 10 on my top 10, and I really quite enjoyed the series, but there's two main complaints I see when I have read reviews of it after reading it, and one of them is kind of just how run-of-the-mill it is and how it doesn't bring anything new to the fantasy scene. It's kind of just cliche, and you know, they're right. It's definitely not a groundbreaking story. It uses kind of the same old tropes of the farm boy and this is the chosen one and has secret powers, all that kind of thing. And so I definitely don't disagree with that assessment. However, I still enjoyed it. Sometimes you just want kind of cliche, almost kind of comfort read trope book. So this duology is my answer for that. Question 2, party guess. Your most anticipated book release for this year. So for this I chose two. I did choose a romance and a fantasy. So from now until the rest of the year, my most anticipated releases is first is a romance, which comes out on September 7th, and that is Portrait of a Scotsman by Evie Dunmore. This is the third book in her League of Extraordinary Women historical romance series. I really liked the first two books that I read last year, and so I'm very excited just for a new entry in this series as well. The female character that this book follows is my favorite of the kind of gang of women, I guess the League of Women, from the first two books. So I'm very excited for her story as well. The male in this story has been introduced a little bit in this series so far, and I'm very intrigued by him. So I am very excited for his story as well. And in addition, this is my favorite cover of the three. So really just a nice icing on top of that cake for this release. And then next is my fantasy most anticipated, which comes out on September 28th, and that is The Bone Ship's Wake by R.J. Barker. Unfortunately, there's not been a cover revealed yet, so I cannot show it off to you in this video. But this is the third and final book in the Untitled Trilogy series, and I adore this series. I fully expect this series to make it on my list of top favorite completed series after this year, barring some kind of just total shit show a third book, which would be shocking. But yeah, this is a nautical fantasy series, and I just adore it. I read book 2 this month, so now book 3 has made it onto my anticipated releases video because now I am caught up. So excited about this book. If you like nautical fantasy, I definitely recommend this book. It's great. Okay, and question 3, birthday presents, a book that surprised you with how much you loved it. For this question, I chose the Hidden Legacies series by Alona Andrews. So when I was in high school, I went through a big paranormal romance phase, but at the time I only read young adult paranormal romance, and I ate it up and 100% burned myself out on it. It's not a subgenre I really read anymore or am very interested in these days. And so this is not something I had ever thought I would pick up. I've heard of Alona Andrews before, mostly because of their Kate Daniels series and not this one. But last year I did a challenge in November where I read all of the Goodreads Choice Awards romance nominees, and the 5th book in this series was on that list. So I binged the entire series, and I really liked it. It's not an all-time favorite, but it was really enjoyable, and I was surprised that I did like it as much as I did, given that I'm not really interested in a paranormal romance anymore. And after reading this series, I would still say I'm not super interested in picking up more of this subgenre, but I did really enjoy this one, and I am very excited for the 6th, I think, final book that's supposed to come out next year. Question 4, Happy Birthday Song, a book that certainly deserved all the hype it got. So for this one, I once again chose a romance and a fantasy, since again, those are my two favorite genres. So for a romance, I chose what might possibly be the most hyped contemporary romance of 2020, and shockingly did not win the Goodreads Choice Awards, which I thought was wild because I predicted it was going to win like back in August. And so that is Betrayed by Emily Henry. So I read this back in April, right when it came out, or April, May, right when it came out. And that was kind of before I had started watching romance booktubers, before I had kind of gotten into the romance book subreddit. And so at that time I had heard nothing about this book, and I just read it and thought it was amazing. And then I learned throughout the year, as I got more into the online communities for romance books, that this book is hyped so much. So I am glad that I had read it before knowing it was hype, because, you know, sometimes going to something with huge expectations doesn't always live up because you just expect so much. But I think I still would have loved it even if I had it, and this is so good. It's definitely one of my favorite romances of all time. And then for my fantasy book for this answer, I chose, this one was harder than the romance one, because I was looking through my shelves and I feel like I read a lot of fantasy books that are really hyped and I also like, because I find that on average I generally trend with popular opinion. Like if something's well liked, I usually like it, unless it's just something totally off genre or subgenre from what I usually read. But my eyes set on this one and I was like, this is it. This is the one that had the biggest hype to live up to. Like of all the young adult books I've read, this one might be the most hyped on my shelves, and it's the one of the hype books I've read that I've loved the most, and that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This series, this duology, is hyped so much. It's insane, and I loved it. I remember I box set of the two last year, kind of on a whim, in the height of my quarantine-fueled book buying, and because I'd read the Shadow and Bone series in college, and I had liked it, but not loved it, so this was kind of a risk for me. I also at the time knew this was kind of hype, but when I bought it, I was still kind of dipping my toes into getting more into the online book community, and so I didn't quite realize just how high hyped it was. I definitely knew more than Beach Read, but that being said, so I definitely was a little bit wary going into it, but I love this series. I love this duology so much, and so this one I think definitely, for me, 100% lived up to all of the hype it gets. Okay, next question. Happy Music, a book with some very beautiful and truly memorable quotes. So I admittedly do not have an answer for this one, because I'm just not a quote person. If I like read a quote that's kind of cool, I'll like read it and be like, oh, that's kind of cool, and then I'll just move on. Like I'm not someone that highlights or writes down quotes. I don't bookmark them. I don't tab them. I don't remember them. I don't come back to them. Like that's just not the kind of person or reader I am. I kind of wish I was, because I always hear people talk about these quotes that mean so much to them, that they like have tattooed on their bodies or like written different places, and I like think that's kind of cool, although I'm scared of needles, so would not get a tattoo. But I don't know, I'm just like not that kind of reader. I just don't hold on to quotes in any form. So unfortunately, I just like don't have an answer for this one. I tried to think of something, but I just like couldn't come up with anything. And I thought if I started searching for quotes from books I liked, it wouldn't have felt like a genuine answer. So I just decided to not have an answer for this one. Next question. Getting Older, a book that you read a long time ago but think you would appreciate more if you read it as a more mature reader. So once again, I have two answers for this one, but they're both fantasy this time. The first is just the Chronicles of Narnia series as a whole. I have not read the entire series, but I did read 3 of them when I was younger, and I've seen some of the movies, and so I feel like it's pretty well known by most people that this whole series is allegorical, especially Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And here's the thing, as a young child, straight over my head, I did not pick up on it at all. Like I was sitting in that movie theater watching The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as like, I don't know, 9-year-old, however long ago it came out, and I've been going to Bible school and Bible classes at school for years and years, and yet little me did not even cross her mind that Aslan being crucified and then resurrected 3 days later might be sharing some purposeful similarities with the story of Jesus. So I am interested in rereading these as an adult, one, because I did not finish them, but also because I just am interested in reading them, knowing more about the allegories in them, and it's something I definitely did not pick up on as a kid, and I definitely think I would now, and I'm interested in reading it with that lens on. And the second book I have for this answer is Wicked by Gregory Maguire. So this is the book that the hit musical is based on, which I adore that musical, but I hated this book when I read it. Now, I'm not sure that I would like this as an adult, but I read this for the first time as a 6th grader, and maybe I was too young to have read it. I definitely don't think it was certainly not written with a 6th grader in mind, but I just think it was kind of lost on me, a lot of it. And the things I remember about it now are the things I disliked, and I don't think I would necessarily like them again, but I do kind of wish I could have read this for the first time as an adult and not an 11-year-old. Maybe given it more of a fair shake. Because again, as I said, I love the musical, and I understand, and like things were definitely changed, but like the base story is still similar. So it's not that I just like hated the idea of this story or anything, but we shall not know because I cannot reread it for the first time again. And so the last question, sweet birthday memories. A book that you kept you incredibly happy during a sad or demanding period of your life. This was also a hard question because I just like when I think of like the hard times in my life or different hardships or periods of times, I like don't have any reading associated memories that go with it. Like there wasn't a point where I remember being like, oh, I read that book and it cheered me up. So I did think of one example that's maybe not exactly what this one was but I did manage to think of one example that did have a book tied to it, and this was kind of just, there was one night last year during peak COVID where I just was like feeling really sad one night, and I couldn't sleep because I don't remember specifically what I was feeling sad about, kind of other than just, you know, general life during COVID. And I do remember I couldn't sleep because I was just like really down that day or that evening, and so I got out of bed and went to the living room and sat and just devoured this book. And I read half of it in one sitting from like 1 to 3 a.m. And that is The Bromance Book Club by Leigh Adams. I even remember I was reading a different book at the time. I don't remember what it was, but I remember I kind of just wanted something light and fun and fluffy to put me in a better mood that evening until I could fall asleep. And so I looked at my shelves and said, I've had this on my shelf for a bit now. Let's pick it up. Let's pick up a fun romance. And I did, and it was a great time. So that's my answer for that question. Alright, that is all the questions. If you are interested in doing this video, I'll leave the questions in the description box below so you can easily access them, and I will see you in my next video.